Alexa, show me how to make a cocktail without alcohol.
Sure.
Hey, all you songbirds. Welcome back to Tail Feather. It's been a while since you've seen us, and that's by design. I've taken some time to figure out what the voice of the show is going to look like moving forward, and we're in a really great spot to end season one with the one and only Britiney Murphy, and we're going to introduce her in just a minute. What I want to talk about with my songbirds out there is that from us here at Tail Feather, we are going to wrap up season one, and we are going to take a little break. And I'm going to start recording again in December, and we will see you all again in January. But that's stuff we can discuss later on. First and foremost, I want to get to our guest today, the one and only Britiney Murphy. You may not know who she is yet, but you will after this show. You're going to get to know her really well once this show is through. She's one of the best people I know as an operator in the food and beverage space, and coupled into the entertainment space. She and I share a background in that instance, so we will blossom or open up that as we go through this show today. Britiney, I would love for you to introduce yourself to all of our friends out there listening to Tail Feather and sometimes watching.
Yes. Well, hello, Tail Feather listeners. As he stated, my name is Britiney Murphy, residing in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here pretty much all my life, so I'm a Georgia peach by heart. Basically, a little bit about me. I love the art of just pleasing people and people in general. I think that's why I thrive and what I ultimately always strive for in this industry that I do work in. My background just consists of a lot of things food and beverage and hospitality, and it really kind of has molded me into the person that I am today as well as professional.
Very good. Very good. Offline, Britiney and I have talked quite a bit about the sober spaces, the sober-ish spaces, and how non-alcoholic beverage, hospitality, low ABV drinks, and nightlife kind of all intertwine, especially in Atlanta. I have some very close ties to Atlanta, and it's one of my favorite cities in the world. And I would love to know how you got into hospitality. What drew you to this industry? Because a lot of us like to think that it's the land of misfit toys. Like we're like, oh, I didn't fit in anywhere else. So hospitality is not. I'm poo-pooing that at this point. I think we are drawn to it because there's something inside of us that make us go. But I want to hear how you got to hospitality.
Yeah, for sure. Hospitality is not something that everyone can do. It takes a special type of person, for sure. But I got into hospitality, humble beginnings, college student, wanted some money, and I didn't really find like retail and folding t-shirts and things of that nature very appealing to me. And so I was like, let's go serve some food and talk to some people. Was pretty nervous starting out, but again, like as I continue to like just progress within like that pathway, which started as a job and has become a career, it's really like even gotten me out of my shell of like the type of person I am. Used to be very shy and reserved, but being able to interact with people have definitely like made me into the person I am today, which is why I stuck with it. Hospitality, it's all about serving people, making people have the best experience and making it worthwhile. So starting as like a server, something interested me about like bartending and like saw it as like the coolest person in the restaurant, and I was right. And I didn't know what I was in for as far as like the amount of hard work and brain power that took, but it was definitely a challenge. Like that was the most, I mean, I think I wanted to be a bartender more than I wanted to pass a class at that point in college. So
Yeah.
it was just so that just really definitely just took me to the next level of like my career as far as advancement and becoming a well-rounded person and leading up to where I am today.
Hold on. I I love how you were like, I didn't like folding clothes, so let's go do this other thing. Like you immediately made me ask the question. I wonder how many people that are in the bar business have piles of clothes versus people in retail actually folding and stacking things. I'm wondering if there's a correlation there somewhere, because we're nitpicky about the kitchen and about things being in their proper mise en place and such. But I'm wondering if there's a correlation between retail and having stuff all nice and cozy.
Yeah. Smiling because it's all my laundry room.
Right. It's something I'm going to have to study more in the future, I guess. Let me ask you this about the Atlanta hospitality space. For those of you that are unaware, Atlanta has a massive culinary scene. It's one of the best in the country, and it produces some of the best bartenders in the world. Anyone from Tiffany over to Toki. My buddy Brian's down there doing stuff for a major supply house. And Atlanta just seems to be kind of a hotbed for good, and I mean really good hospitality people. What do you think attributes to the success of the culinary world in Atlanta?
I think we definitely have like a spark that a lot of places or regions just don't have, and that's Southern hospitality, right? We're known to already be people who kind of have some manners, and welcome people with open arms and, say our thank yous and our excuse me's as opposed to other areas. It's just kind of like a charm of just Southern hospitality and just a welcoming environment in general, and wanting people to come here, come to Atlanta and say, I experienced this in Atlanta, right? And go back to their place.
Mm,
Because I think similar to what Andre 3000 said, the South got something to say. I think that actually resonates in hospitality, food and beverage as well. So I think it's all about just kind of like that charm that you might not be able to get in other places where you got like Southern cooking and deep
hmm
stuff, like rooted deeply like in those tradition and cultures that you can only find here. And I think that just what elevates us more and gives us that edge as it relates to just hospitality. It's a little melting pot here too. So
Yeah, yeah, it's got a lot of different flavors that kind of merge together, and it's much like the music scene there. It's just kind of a lot, and everything that makes it's really good.
well,
It's
what Yeah, I was gonna say what's great too is you'll find fusion. Like you'll always see that here. You'll try to kind of still see those elements of the embracing of like Southern traditional foods and culinary experiences, but tying it into like fusion cuisines and kind of still giving it that spark while it's still feels like diverse. So
Do you have any favorites right now in Atlanta?
Okay. Well, a couple of favorites. So I've really been into casual dining. We got
Yeah.
a lot of food halls like popping up around the place. I have a couple spots that I frequent. One spot, Chattahoochee Food Works. It's like you've probably haven't been there because it's fairly new. But if you walk
Mm-mm.
in there, it's a food hall and it's an elevated, like a good experience. It's not just like a regular food cafeteria, but you see like different tastes and like foods from different cultures. In one spot though, there's this Philly cheesesteak spot that I really like it there,
Mm.
and I've been digging that digging that lately. So I frequent there. There's another
Mm-hmm.
spot, and again, these spots they're not going to be like the Michelin star restaurants or the
Right. I'm with you there. Yeah.
yeah, little taco spot on How Meal, Tuesday Taco. You get a nice, nice beverage, and then just like traditional like tacos, right? Uh
Mm-hmm.
Service is great. Not going to spend a lot of money, but the food is great. So right now I've been just in a phase of casual dining. Go order it. You're still getting elevated food. It's not fast food. You sit down, you have experience, and you go. And I like that we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of that in Atlanta.
Okay. I I really need to get back down and visit.
Yeah.
I go through the airport constantly, but I haven't been in the city proper in probably 5 or 6 years at this point, and I'm well overdue for a visit. The culinary scene sounds like it's in a good space. Hospitality sounds like it's in a pretty good space. How does the explosion of non-alcoholic beverage or the sober-ish or sober movement, how does the hospitality space help shape the non-alcoholic sober-ish, like low ABV space, and vice versa?
Yeah. So what I've noticed here, like in going out to places, even like bars or nightlife, I do feel like there is more room here in Atlanta for like
Hmm.
programming that's centered around like low ABV or non-alcoholic beverages and things of that nature. Now, I have found that the restaurants that are embracing that, which is more so like full dining establishments, there's a place called Del Bar, really great. I tried like this nice like savory like NA cocktail, which was out of this world.
Mm.
Great. Um, so you can find those very creative takes on like NA beverages, but there are still some places where there's a rooftop bar I like to go to. Took a friend up there. They didn't have anything that was
Mm.
non-alcoholic, so she found herself trying to make something, make something
Okay.
work. It was funky, but it worked. But
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
feel like, knowing like the people who I hang with and stuff and kind of like trying to understand that. And when we go out, I still feel like there's a lot of room here. So I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I feel like the trend of non-alcoholic or people wanting to enjoy those type of beverages would more so start to shape the culinary experiences here in Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta is really shaping that experience yet on the vice versa.
Gotcha.
I was excited to find one spot in, and I can't recall where it is quite right now, like on the top of my head, but there is a spot that is, that has like a non-alcoholic like program. It's a full non-alcoholic
Oh.
bar. You can get coffees, you can get
Oh, wow.
alcoholic beverages, and it's centered in then like this business complex kind of. Um,
Okay.
really small. I looked at the followers. I didn't feel like it was a lot of people, so I think it's still like space for people to really understand that these
Yeah.
things are out there, which we don't have a lot. I think that's the only one I can recall right now. Um,
Yeah.
city. So hand in hand, I think there's still some
Gotcha.
to be spoken.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's out at the resort, like out on the shore at the resort side. When I looked at Liar's reports a couple months ago, United is still, which is our distributor, or not our, I should say Liar's, Liar's distributor in Georgia. United is a massive player in Liar's numbers. So I think a lot of it's like Savannah, Athens, like that side of the state, Jekyll, that side of the state. But Atlanta is definitely doing some numbers, and I hope to get down there and look at it. I do want to transition what we're talking about from the culinary scene and um, non-alcoholic. I kind of want to take the sober-ish movement and move it over to nightlife. As Atlanta is known to have really, really great nightlife. I last time I was there, I was probably out way too late. I had some nice, really great hot fried chicken before going back to the hotel. It was a great evening with some friends. But I understand that you work in the entertainment business, and that's coupled into nightlife. What does a day in your life look like with the kind of work that you do in hospitality? And is the nightlife sector through Atlanta adopting the soberish movement, or is it still in that kind of pop up phase?
Yeah, so as a food and beverage professional working like in the industry, entertainment industry, I definitely say there is still work to be done. Day to
Hmm.
day for me is always about me just figuring out, okay, like, so we have people coming into the building that are going to have an experience on this end, right? And then typically people will think, well, the experience as it relates to food and beverage is just going to be a beer or a cocktail, and that's what people still see that as the norm, especially in
Hmm.
life. People don't really expect to be able to indulge in something else that makes them feel like they're actually getting something elevated and worthwhile aside from a soda or a water. So day to day for
Hmm.
me, I'm constantly thinking about first like how to make everyone feel seen as a consumer, um
Hmm.
how to make sure like the experience is well rounded for every type of person that does come into the building and wants to enjoy the evening, and just also making people feel included and not called out too, so don't make it so obvious, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of what you have to remember when you're doing like food and beverage programming of this sort, especially when it comes to low APV, non-alcoholic beverages. I'm finding based in my work that yeah, people don't want it to be like so obvious. They just want to
Hmm.
enjoy a drink. It's not that serious, but in my eyes, it is, right, as a whole. So, as far as other nightlife goes, I think right now what I'm doing in the industry, the work that I'm doing with who I work with is very much like ahead of the mark, at least in the Atlanta market.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, I can go out to a place like tonight or another venue said, and if they do have non-alcoholic, like actual cocktail programming, it's not really
Hmm.
visible. You might have to ask.
Gotcha.
It's not being ordered. Bartender might give you a weird kind of, huh?
Hmm.
So
So,
definitely,
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of room and space in Atlanta as far as nightlife goes, uh, for that type of programming, in my opinion.
Right on. Well, all I hear is opportunity, right?
Yes.
Because if there's a difficulty going on, that means that questions aren't being asked or answered, or they're just not aware yet. Because it is something that I was reading some reports this morning. They're a couple weeks old at this point, so I have probably 40 tabs open on my browser right now. And one of them's been open for a couple weeks. It's got that little ring around it. And I was reading that report this morning. 46% of Z is now choosing to not drink.
Mm-hmm.
46%. And for those of you listening, and you've heard this through the season many times, if you're not tweaking your spaces to be more inclusive, you're going to have problems. And I was talking with a peer of mine, I don't know, about a week ago, maybe. Um, you know him. I'm not going to say his name on air because I haven't cleared this with him. But we were talking about uh, the massive problem that hospitality has is people are not going out, especially young or older, no, younger millennials, like at the tail end, where Z is catching up, and then Alpha. You're going to look at 60 to 70% of people not wanting to go out.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out how to get people to go back to brick and mortar, and not rely on a 125-inch TV with a sound bar and the internet to connect to friends, like getting that social interaction. We've got to figure out how to fix that wheel so that we can get people back out. And one of those things is offering a more wide and more comprehensive food and beverage program. And
Right.
I applaud you for trying and finding ways to introduce that into a city as big as Atlanta.
Yeah, and you definitely have to pay attention to economy too, like you stated, even for people who aren't Gen Zers, right? The economy being the way it is and things being a little bit more expensive. It's definitely a balance when we're thinking about this type of programming, like the
Mm-hmm.
crowd that we're appealing to, but also like average wise, like what are they willing to pay for this? Because
Yeah.
that is included in the experience, right? So you never want to go to a place and then, wow, they have this for me. Oh, wow, it's like this much money. I don't know if I could really enjoy that. So that's
Yeah.
definitely balanced too. And I will say it is very fun. And I think you're aware when I kind of started this journey in the project because we were well looked in together. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel so proud just the work that we've done so far because digging into it now, like looking at where we are now versus where we started, I can
Yeah.
like the benefits and the results have been like astronomical. So I definitely like encourage those who do work in these spaces to consider not consider it's very important. It's inclusive it's inclusivity at the end of the day. So like
Yeah.
even if you don't feel like it's not always about making the big bucks. It's about creating an experience for everyone. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this has just been great to work on, great to study up on, great to see the results, great to see it's working and people do want that, which
Yeah.
people are interested and we're in the right direction.
I love that. And for those of you worried about the dollars, the volumetrics, if you make it more comprehensive, the volumetrics alone, if you make it known, the volumetrics will work itself out.
Yes.
I have a friend that owns a bar in San Diego, and years ago when I was working for a different company, we sold in a very high-end tequila, one that's at that point was out of stock constantly, right? And he was selling his at bottle service for like $4.50 a bottle, and the club 2 blocks down the street was selling it for $1,200 a bottle.
Mm.
And I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" And he was like, "My bar's packed. I'm turning these bottles over like this, and we have it on draft. I'm going to sell out, and I'm going to make more faster than they will,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to keep supplying me with it because it keeps disappearing." And I was like, that kind of makes sense. So volumetrics will work themselves out if you do the math and you find the right framing to go into. You know what else will work itself out, Brittany?
What?
Commercial breaks. They always find a way to work themselves out. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't say it at the beginning of the show. I need to say it now. I want to say it now. The entire first season of Tail Feather is sponsored by Liars Non-Alcoholic, our friends over in Australia. And we are going to take a quick short break, see something from our friends over at Liars, and we'll be right back in just a jiffy. Stay tuned.
The Liar's non-alcoholic pink spritz.
I taste the world through rose-coloured glasses.
Delicious. Stay spirited. Make it a Liar's.
Hey, Songbirds, thanks for coming back and joining us again here at Tail Feather. I'm here with Britiney Murphy from Atlanta. We are still talking about the soberish space, and we talked a little bit about it before the commercial break. I want to get into Britiney's story a little more and find out more about her journey and how she identifies inside sobriety, or if she chooses not to. That's also okay. And then we'll take this organically and figure out where we're going to flow from with this answer. But Britiney, sobriety tends to affect a lot of people in different ways, right? I don't consider myself sober because I will test alcohol quite a bit, meaning I'll do things to analyze, and because it hits my tongue, that means I'm going to be ingesting it in some way, shape, or form, right? That's a very strict way of looking at things. A lot of us aren't so strict. How do you feel like you fall in that spectrum?
Yeah, so as far as like that spectrum goes, I definitely feel like I do identify with like sober-ish kind of like
Okay.
area. Like you said, being like a food and beverage professional, it's not all about just the fact that I'm going out to drink every single night, but being in those spaces, we definitely do have to indulge and taste and help program and figure out the taste and different things. So, but in my personal life, like from day to day, in comparison to when I was maybe a little younger, as you a little younger, as you get older, and as you think about like how alcohol affects your body and affects everybody differently, like you said, in your journey
Mm-hmm.
personally, I've found that pulling the needle back or pulling that back a little bit and kind of like embracing a soberish lifestyle. Like some nights, instead of indulging in hard alcohol, maybe you'll do a spritzer. Maybe I'll even go
Mm-hmm.
no alcohol at all, and indulge in like an NA cocktail or something of the sorts. It seems to work
Mm-hmm.
for my lifestyle. I'm very active. So you don't want to feel crummy at the end of the day every single day, right?
Yeah.
Got to get up. I play tennis, so uh, like in doing all that, it's just there's just no room for it, and I think that's
No.
okay. Yeah, I think that's okay for
Yeah.
me. Um, so yeah, that's where I identify. But
Okay.
it's great because like we talked about, just what I'm doing professionally as I begin to just learn more about that type of programming. It definitely has been easier for me to navigate like making those decisions and just knowing that there's other options out there that are good,
Yeah.
which is I think helpful for anyone. So
Yeah, I don't think the general public, and I don't mean a slight by this by any means, and we've talked about this in a couple episodes in this past in season one. I don't think the general public really knows how much alcohol they ingest when they're drinking cocktails. And the
mm,
reason being is a lot of folks will get wine and they'll look at the bottle and they'll read the ABV off of it, not really understand what it means, but okay, this is 16.5 versus 12.5. Obviously, the 16.5 is going to be stronger, right? So it's 33 proof, right? 16.5. Same thing with beers, like a light beer at 3.5 to 4% over here in the EU, it might be 3% for a light, even two in some instances. And then like strong beers like Imperials that get up into the like 12s, 14s, like a wine would be. But if I were to ask the general consumer, what is the ABV of a margarita? I promise you 90% of them will have no idea what they're ingesting, right? So for those of you listening, when we're looking at low or no, no obviously means as close to zero as possible, or 0.5 or under. That's what legally defines something as non-alc in the US. Low is kind of a subjective thing. In some instances, it can be 1, 2, 3%,
mhm.
like some of the spritzers that you can change and use like Liar's Classico in. You can use a traditional aperitivi and pull that ABV way down to like 6% roughly. But if you're looking at a margarita, a full strength margarita is going to be somewhere around 26, 28 ABV, which is just under the ABV of like a high ABV liqueur or maybe a flavored whiskey. A lot of those are in that 60 70 proof range. So when you're looking at a cocktail that is 3.5, 4 ounces at a 23 or I'm sorry, 26, 28 ABV, you're looking at a considerable measure of alcohol. But when you pull it down to like a mid strength, you can get it down to like 13 and half it. You're in a better space. So I when you're playing around with these drinks, make sure that you're looking at the traditional beverages and kind of using those as models, as blueprints, and then adjust around them. What have you found in your experience with doing some drink smithing works best for non-alcoholic cocktails right now? Like the science will advance, right? We'll be able to do an insane old fashioned in the next year and a half. But right now they're good, but they could be better, right? So what works best for what you do? Is it RTDs? Is it cocktails? So forth.
Yeah, so, and I will say, like, RTDs, at least in the industry that I work in, they work in certain settings within the entertainment industry. Like, are we outside? Are we indoor? Like, what's the space like? I've been finding, when I'm thinking about programming, I'm finding that people still want to see something being made by hand. And so for me, the strategy of doing just non-alcoholic cocktails have
Mm-hmm.
definitely worked wonders in comparison to, again, like beers. Non-alcoholic beers, they haven't really felt in my industry to be worth the squeeze. But this
Gotcha.
also changes regionally. Like, there are some regions, maybe the Midwest, where they're used to drinking beer, so maybe they might appreciate a non-alcoholic beer.
Mm-hmm.
But typically along the East Coast, the New York Cities, the Atlantas, like where I'm at, we're very cocktail forward. Um, I'm finding that the most successful method for me is a cocktail program centered around like no alcohol. And yeah, something that just can be made by hand that people can see. I think it elevates it and still like creates that experience that I'm getting something that they were thoughtful enough to come up with a recipe
Yeah.
to make it good for me versus just a soda and a splash of cranberry juices, which is what I used to make for people back in the day when they did.
I was building a training deck earlier today, and I was like, non-alcoholic cocktails are not a soft drink with a fancy garnish. That is not a non-alcoholic
But,
cocktail.
uh,
That is a soft drink with a sprig of mint or a couple of raspberries or something like that. Which, if that's what you want to drink, that's what you want to drink. There's no shade thrown there. I love the fact that you said people love to see things being made.
mhm,
That's a really important piece of what is being said today. It might be the most important nugget of information in this whole episode, other
mhm,
than the fact that we are finally being able to talk. It, it means that people still crave that experience.
mhm.
People still want to connect to another human and come out and see something being made, not a robot, not AI, something that's being put together by somebody that cares about what they're doing, right?
Exactly.
Um, do you have a favorite drink that's in that realm? Like if you go out and, or maybe you're coming to your own activation and there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 non-alcoholic cocktails on the menu. Do you have a go-to? Like I know that I want a bicicleta. It's my favorite non-alcoholic cocktail right now.
Yeah.
Do you have one of those yet?
Yeah, so I'm pretty all over the place.
Okay.
I do have a preference in like what I'm looking for, like flavor wise. I'm always looking for
Mhm.
something that it gives me kind of a sense of bubbly. Like, so it's bubbly, it's fruity, it's light. So I tend to go
Yeah.
to things that are very much like maybe like a, let's say like a no paloma, right? I tend to go
Okay.
I'm still going tend to go for things that mimic maybe their alcoholic counterpart, right? So something
Hmm.
we have in our program would be like a watermelon, like a margarita, right? You're using like very like special like, you know, flavored syrups, like high end flavored syrups. You do like a splash of sparkling, and we also embrace like the liars agave too. I think
Oh.
that cocktail is perfect, but it gives me a little bit of everything I'm looking for in a drink that makes me feel like
Mhm.
have an experience. So yeah,
Yeah.
fruity forward, bubbles, refreshing, nice garnish. That's typically what I go for.
You just got the second most important tidbit of information, I think. Something that mimics another, like a traditional beverage.
Mhm.
So, in hospitality, for those of you watching and listening, there's something called the comfort bubble or the comfort cushion. We want to make sure that we extend our limits of the comfort cushion, like try to get somebody to try something new every now and again, but it's all about making sure the customer feels comfortable about what they're ordering. Do you think that the non-alcoholic beverages that stem off of the traditional counterparts, so like the No Paloma or a No Grony or we call the bicicleta that's non-alcoholic, we call it the trike instead of a bicycle. So do you have a something a little more stable, a little more fun? Do you have do you think that those work better? Do you think that that's the key to a customer or a consumer inside of your space understanding what's going on, or do you think the more bespoke drinks are what works?
Yeah, so I definitely feel like it depends on knowing the type of consumer that is coming into your establishment for sure. And
Hmm.
to those trends and kind of like where the interest lies. Now, I'm finding actually that for some people, the non-alcoholic cocktails that are kind of like mimicked off of their alcoholic counterparts, they do well. But I'm also finding
Hmm.
that people kind of like more of the bespoke feel, like because they don't want it.
Mm.
They don't. It depends on the reason why the person is indulging in non-alcoholic or low APB drinks.
Mm.
So for
Hmm.
those who are really truly sober and non-alcoholic, I'm finding that a lot of them are, or if it's a younger person who hasn't experienced what would have been like a margarita, they really don't find the appeal in getting something that is mimicking a margarita. They might not even know what that flavor profile really is. So
Yeah,
a balance for us, at least in like in the industry that I work in. And I'm finding like more bespoke things that feel like it's their own non-alcoholic beverage. It was completely made up. I'm finding actually that those are tending to be a little more popular, a little bit more appealing.
that's
So
very cool.
yeah, I think it does depend on the reason why and the consumer and what the reason why they're not. So I think it's nice to have a balance of both.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. And I don't disagree. I think that it'd be a shame to not kind of travel down some uncharted paths with the
Mhm.
new stuff that's on the market and try to, you know, again, use the blueprints because they're proven to work in balancing, but understand that you're not tempering spirits, so you have to adjust your blueprint, right?
Mhm.
Um, and anyone that's built a bar knows how many times you got to adjust a blueprint before you actually get into the end of the bar, um, which is which brings us straight into what I like to call what we call here at the Nest the grill. I'm going to throw you on the grill. This is an impromptu question. It's off the top of my head. You get to give the best answer you can, and I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 seconds to think about it, and then we'll go into the answer. Are you
Okay.
ready to be thrown on the grill?
I think I'm ready.
All right. All right. Let's see. Who's some of my favorite stars in Atlanta? You mentioned Outkast, which I love very much when we were on a commercial break. But you know what? I'm going to go with Outkast because this just hit me. Andre 3000 comes into your activation, right? And he wants a bespoke cocktail because we've talked about bespoke cocktails quite a bit. And not only does he want a bespoke cocktail, but he wants to base it off of his newest album, which, if those of you that haven't listened to it, it is beautiful, but it's all flute. It's very different, and I love it. Uh, what are you going to do? Like, how are you, like, we're going to use the flute and Andre as inspiration for this drink. Where are we going with it? I'm going to give you, well, that's a pretty loaded question. So I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, and then we'll start, right? Do, 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 do. Do 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 do. All right, you got something for us?
I think so. So I think
Okay,
I think I'd name the drink in the key of C, just because I think a flute is in the key of C. Don't quote me.
okay,
Um,
okay.
his album was so great. It was very flowy, very
Hmm.
airy, very eclectic. So I'd probably go for something that is like a foamy cocktail first and foremost. Something similar to a flip, but maybe on the side of non-alcoholic. So we're using probably some egg white, something light and airy and nice. I really, really feel like his personality is so like calming and like but still very much like he's like a legend, right? I'd probably go for something like with like lavender bitters, lemon. We're doing like the egg white to give it some air and some float. Make it really
All
nice.
right.
Maybe we'll top
Yeah.
it with some soda, do something of the sort. Give it like that purple, some like maybe a purple hue. Maybe we're doing a lavender simple syrup or something like that with the lemon. Just to
Right
kind of
on.
like garner like that spirit and nature that I feel he exudes at this point in like this
Hmm.
point in time in his life. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm thinking like the Key of C. It's a lavender lemon fizzy drink, something like that.
Right
That's all
on.
I got.
I love the way you went, the direction you went with that. It's to me, it's driving music. I love to kind of zone out and just drive. But I
Mhm.
do love the fact that you brought the Kia C into it, and that's a lovely name. And this might honestly be the best answer for the best episode for the best first season that I've done because there's only one, and you're the best. And we got to do this together at the end of season one, folks. That was the Key of C, a lavender lemon, we'll call it fizzy sour
Mm,
ish.
that sounds. I would
Light and
order.
lively.
Yes. Love.
Yeah, yeah. I dig it. I dig it. And I want it with some blueberry pancakes with some
Mm.
lemon ricotta cheese
Oh
filled,
gosh,
like
that's
stuck
great.
in between. Yeah, some lemon
Yeah.
curd.
I
Man.
might go somewhere and be like, "Can you just
Oh,
recreate this whole thing for me?"
yeah. Why does it need to be 9 o'clock where I am right now? I've already eaten dinner. I can't do
Right.
this. Not that I have lavender, anyways. It's not something that you're gonna find just kind of sitting around this house.
Right.
Um, well, Brittany, I do want to thank you so much for coming on and helping anchor this season. It has been an absolute joy to get to know you over the past year. I have a lot of respect for what you do. I come from the concert venue world. It's where I cut my teeth. The wonderful little fact about the venue that I worked in. Um, so it opened up in 2000, right? I left in it's either '08 or '09. I can't remember. I think it was '08. Maybe '09. I can't remember. About 70% of the original bar staff that was there, we'll say in 2003. So, you're going to have those years where you get the back and forths.
Mm-hmm.
About 70% of the current bar staff has been there for 20 years.
Wow.
And it's an amazing. You and I both know how hard it is to work that lifestyle, to work in that industry, and um, I wish the stuff would have been around back then. I think life would have been a little different, but I'm not going to trade what has happened for anything.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. This is the plugging section of the show. You get to tell people where they can find you, should you choose to, what projects you're working on, if you want the world to know about it. This next minute or two are all about you.
Yeah, thank you. Before I get into that, thank you as well for letting me anchor this season with you. Again, I listen to your content. I think it's informative. I've even passed it along to people higher up in my company. So
Thank
it's
you.
really great things you're doing here. So I really appreciate the opportunity. As far as me and what I'm working on, honestly, just continuing, moving fast forward just in work and continuing to understand the reasons why I do things and understand the reasons why we create programming for people and just, continue to improve that every single day. Like just in the spirit of just people and I think life is hard, and so whatever I could do to make that little hour or two great for people, that's what I'm striving for. And so I've been really moving fast forward, hit the ground running on those type of things just for work wise, and constantly just thinking about in general, just personally with just endeavors on how, just talking about just being here in Atlanta and how we could just continue to motivate people and make people knowledgeable about the things we do in hospitality and why we do it. So that's pretty much it, nestled here in Atlanta, Georgia. That's what I'm working on.
But I can tell, and I think the people watching and listening can tell how much you care for this industry, and kudos to you for that. Especially with the way it's shifted over the past 5 years,
Yeah.
it's been difficult for a lot of people, and I applaud you for staying with it and allowing that space to grow.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Nick Crutchfield. This is the end of season 1 of Tail Feather. We made it 10 episodes. This will premiere either tonight or tomorrow morning. We'll figure it out. You don't even know what that is because you don't know what time it is or where it is and when it is right now. But that is a wrap. Put a feather in my hat. I am out of here from the nest. Nick Crutchfield. She's Britiney Murphy. We'll see you next time. Season 2, dry January 2025. Season 2. See ya. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you. Bye.
Alexa, show me how to make a cocktail without alcohol.
Sure.